So Vivo sent me their latest Vivo NEX 3 and asked me to check it out. And at first look, it looks awesome, actually. And the spec sheet doesn't disappoint either, so let's dive in and do a complete walkthrough on it. Now, if you aren't familiar, a complete walkthrough on this channel is where I try to go through every single feature I possibly can on a new device so that you guys are better prepared should you be in the market to actually go buy one. With that said, there's a ton to go through, so let's get started with the styling. Now, as I said, it looks pretty sick, honestly, and it feels surprisingly premium. The first thing you'll notice about the NEX 3 is the new waterfall full view display, as Vivo calls it, and it's got thinner bezels than even the Note 10 does, which is nuts. The screen has an 85-degree curvature, a 99.6% screen-to-body ratio, and Vivo claims a 0mm bezel on the side when looked at it dead on. That screen is a 6.89-inch FHD+ POLED display that can hit 600 nits of brightness and has support for HDR10 content. A neat little touch they added to the device to make some use of those curved edges is a side ambient light. So think of this as your new notification light. They can be customized to display differently depending on whether you have an incoming call, notifications, or even move to music if you want. Another thing that is fascinating about the design is that because of how far the screen curves down, I imagine, they ended up removing all the physical buttons on the device. Like, all of them. The volume and power buttons are actually just touch-sensitive areas on the right side indicated by a small rigid area on the frame. You tap and hold this to turn it on and off, and you do the same slightly above and slightly below for volume up and down. You can also customize this, or even add an on-screen option you swipe onto to be able to adjust the volume if you prefer. Another way they kept the front of the device basically all screen is by putting the front-facing camera at the top as a pop-up camera like we've seen some other manufacturers do now, but this also has a flash tucked inside next to the camera instead of using the screen for light as other phones do. Moving around the device, we also seemingly miraculously nowadays have a headphone jack at the top next to the pop-up camera. And on the bottom we have our USB Type-C port, dual SIM card tray, and speaker. That speaker, which also utilizes the headset speaker to create a stereo set, gets pretty loud and sounds like this.
In this trident resides the power of Atlantis.
The USB port next to it, by the way, is also capable of fast charging the 4500 milliamp battery using what Vivo calls Super Flash Charge, which utilizes a 44-watt charger that is included with the phone. And using that, I managed to get it from 0 to 67% in 30 minutes. Under the hood, the device has a Qualcomm Snapdragon 855 Plus chip, the top chip that they make, paired with 8 gigs or 12 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig or 128 gig storage option. And the model I have here is their 5G model, which has 8 gigs of RAM and a 256 gig of storage option. They also, though, sell an 8 gig, 128 gig option on a non-5G model. Which brings us to the rear of the device and the triple camera setup they have back here in a circle, which reminds me kind of the old Lumia phones, and I mean that in a good way. We have a 64 megapixel, not a typo, main camera, and not the 48 megapixel camera that is in a ton of other high-end smartphones right now.
Now, a couple of benefits of this camera is first, you can have high resolution shots if you need them. 9216 by 6912 to be exact, which is just crazy. But the camera also bins the 0.8 micron pixels together to create 16 megapixel images with much larger 1.6 micron sized pixels that can gather more light and produce a much better low light image. In addition to this, the camera is a larger 1 by 1.72 inch sensor compared to the 1/2 inch sensor most phones are using right now, giving it a bit of an advantage in capturing more light and also potentially having more natural bokeh without having to use the portrait mode. Now, besides the main sensor, we also have an ultra-wide 13 megapixel camera with an aperture of f2.2 that can capture more in the photo. And here's it compared to other ultra-wide cameras out there as well. We also have a 13 megapixel f2.48 2x telephoto lens for closer up shots as well.
Now, this setup might sound familiar to people as it is the same essentially as the new iPhone 11 Pro and Pro Max. Unfortunately, I can't put them head to head though, as I don't have the 11 Pro yet, but subscribe to the channel and ding the bell next to the word subscribe to be notified for videos on those, as they should be coming in the next week or so. That camera also is capable of shooting up to 4K at 60 frames per second, and here is a 4K 30 frame per second video that I shot with it and the OnePlus 7 Pro. Now, diving into the camera a bit, keeping in mind again that all of this is pre-release software, the modes we have are night mode, that takes multiple long exposure shots and stitches them together to create a much brighter image. Portrait, which uses software to try and blur the background behind your subject. 64 megapixels, which is a dedicated mode to take a full 64 megapixel image if you need that kind of resolution. Pano, our standard panoramic mode that stitches multiple photos together to create a wider one. Live photo, which takes a short video before and after the shutter is pressed that can be played back in the gallery while viewing the image. Slow-mo, this lets you take, obviously, slow-mo videos. You do actually have some pretty interesting options, including going all the way up to 1080p at 240 frames per second and 720p at 480. Time-lapse, this lets you take fast motion videos. Pro, this is a mode for those that want to control over every little part of the camera, so the ISO, the shutter speed, etc. manually. One side benefit though is that you can actually set it to take 64 megapixel images and also raw photos in this mode if you turn it on in settings. AR stickers lets you place stickers that adjust to your perspective while using them. And Fun Video, which is a 15 to 60 second video app of some sort that kind of feels like maybe it's like a Snapchat, TikTok type of thing, I don't really know. Now for software, the NEX 3 and the NEX 3 5G both run FunOS 9.1 running on top of Android 9.1. But since this software isn't finished, I can't really dive into it very much. Instead, there are a few things I'd like to point out about it. Firstly, it does not include any Google apps, no Play Store, no Google Maps, Gmail, etc., and has the Chinese equivalents preloaded instead. Now, if you're in China, this is very normal to you. Thankfully though, if you do want those services and you're not in China, it's pretty easy to install them yourself. I remember back in the day when you had to install those things yourself, you had to actually do it through like recovery and flash a zip file, and it had to be signed in basically like a hacked version. That's no longer the case. Instead, all you have to do is go online and simply search for the Play Store APK and then try a bunch of them out until you find the latest version that works with your specific device. I managed to get it to work, and we'll maybe do a detailed tutorial for anyone interested on how a bit later for the site and the channel, so stay tuned for that. There guys, let me know in the comments below what you think of this phone, of this video. Always appreciate hearing from you guys. If you like this video, please thumbs up or share it. It's greatly appreciated. And go check out the rest of the channel again. If you like what you see there, please subscribe and ding the bell next to the word subscribe so you get notified when I do new videos. Also, check out the link below to be taken to my weekly email newsletter. You can sign up for that. It goes out once a week. Has all the videos that I do here, plus other tips and tricks and other fun things that happen on the website that don't necessarily make it here to YouTube. As always though, regardless, thanks for watching.